I don't even think Blumhouse saw this coming. Obsession doing 100 mil. It's not just okay. So the movie's really good. We know that it's suspenseful. It's got a good premise. It's good, but there's a real reason why this movie in 2026 with this concept is blowing up, going viral, going crazy, ticket sales through the roof. And you know what? I'm gonna sit down and we're gonna get into the real reason why Obsession is taking off the way it's taking off. And get your popcorn for this one. Here's the real reason why I believe Obsession is a crazy mega hit at the box office right now. See, everybody's talking about the horror. Everybody's talking about, the creepy moments, the viral stuff, TikTok, Instagram, all that stuff. Oh, the curse, the one wish willow. Oh, look at this girl. She's obsessed. She's crazy. Look at her smile. And all that stuff is good. But I think that's the cherry on the top. I don't think that's the real reason why Obsession became such a big hit. The real reason I think this movie blew up is because it accidentally exposed a wound that millions of people are carrying around right now. Loneliness. See, and it's ironic in 2026 that people are like this lonely. So look, Bear at the beginning of the movie, he wasn't a villain. At least not that we knew of. He wasn't some monster. He was this socially awkward guy working in the music store, carrying feelings for someone that he's known for years. This girl who, she's sarcastic, she's cool, he thinks she's cute, all that good stuff, normal stuff. But he never had the courage to say what he really wanted to say to her. Talk that good game, get in her ear, talk that smooth talk. I know he got it in him. Maybe he didn't. And honestly, a lot of people watching this movie saw themselves in that guy. Not the magic, not the curse, but they relate to that rejection, that hesitation, Look, a lot of people don't want to admit it, but at one point, whether it be middle school or high school, you were terrified to go up to that girl and talk to her. It is what it is. So the fear of losing that friendship, he didn't want to deal with that, as we can see. And look, nowadays you can't blame him because it's like we created this culture where people can spend years secretly liking someone while being terrified to make a move, because rejection in 2026 is not the same kind of rejection from the 90s. I'll tell you that. In the 90s, you got rejected, you got up, you do it again. Maybe you get embarrassed, that's that. Now you get embarrassed, you might end up on somebody's TikTok. And so I'm guessing that's exactly where Bear is with that, And so remember that scene where he finds the one wish willow and he looks at it like it's just this ridiculous little object that could grant this wish or whatever. Well, after another failed attempt to express himself, to Nikki, that she would love him. I mean, that how he feels about her, hoping that she would love him. He goes and he uses the one wish willow to grant this wish, that she would love him more than anyone else in the world. Now, let's stop right there. Because, see, this is where the movie really becomes bigger than just horror. The willow is not the monster. It's not the problem. It's really desperation. See, the fact is that willow was a representation of a shortcut. It was just this fantasy that, what if I could get her without risking the rejection? What if I could just skip all of the uncertainty, all that good stuff? What if I could just guarantee that she chooses me? And you see, that's where he done messed up right there, And if we're gonna be honest, that temptation, I feel like a lot of younger people are feeling that today. Again, I'm 36. I'm not Gen Z. I'm not one of these younger guys out here. But from what I can see around, you could say it's anecdotal, but what I see around me and what I'm seeing on the internet everywhere, and I'm sure you listening can agree, that's what a lot of these young guys are feeling nowadays. It's hard for them. They can't meet girls the same way they did back in the day. I mean, they can, but again, there's a lot of attention on the line. There's a lot of rejection. There's a lot of social media. The standards are different. Everything's different. Anyway, back to the main point. dealing with social media nowadays, status, money, a lot of people are kind of using their one wish willow in a way. You know, yeah, they don't have a one wish willow in real life, but what they do have is anything that can force attraction instead of earning that connection. And this movie puts that into perspective. People are out here using money and whatever kind of trinkets they could do to attract women. That's the real life version of a one wish willow. And people, they're sitting around it and they're not really doing it how it's supposed to be done, in my opinion. So this movie asks a terrifying question. What happens when somebody gets exactly what they wanted? Oh, you like that girl? You want anything? You'll do anything to get her? Again, he's using the one wish willow, but people in real life, their one wish willow could be money, fame, attention, whatever, status. So what happens when you get exactly what you want? See, at first, Bear thinks he won. Nikki suddenly wants to be around him. It does scare him, but deep down, he knows that, he doesn't want to give it up, knowing that she's crazy, well, beyond crazy. So she suddenly becomes intensely attached to this guy. You saw it at the dinner table. You saw, when he asked her if she lied about her dad having cancer, how crazy and wild she went right then and there. That was the major red flag that he just ignored. But as long as the fantasy came true, he was willing to just deal with it. He acted like he didn't want it because it scared him, but he had ample opportunities to run and he kept coming back. Never called the cops, none of that. Anyway, the movie starts showing the cracks though. Yeah. See, one of the most disturbing moments, because there were a few, it happens early, right when the wish takes effect. See, there's that brief moment where Nikki almost glitches during that little intimate moment, just for a second. You could see the panic in her eye. And so it kind of felt like you could see that she was trapped in her own body, screaming for help. Scary stuff. That scene was incredibly important, and that was a pivotal moment. See, because the movie is quietly trying to tell us something. This is not love on either side. We know it's not coming from her side because he pulled that little willow. That little willow that he pulled out, that's not love. Love doesn't erase somebody's free will. That's what he was doing. He was erasing her free will. It doesn't override somebody's personality. It doesn't trap somebody within themselves. He was crazy for that. So this right here, it's not romance, which is ironic because you remember in the car ride home, she was talking about a love story and a romance story, and he was like, well, really, what's the difference? Yeah, he wouldn't know because he was a good example of that. This was possession. This was not love. It was possession. And so that right there is when the movie flips the entire fantasy upside down. Yeah. See, Bear thought what he wanted was for her to just be so in love with him and yada yada, but I feel like he really wanted connection. He was lonely. You saw how he was crying when the cat died, which look, if I'm not knocking him for that, I'm not going to shame anybody for crying when their pet dies because, that's a connection you can't explain. But he was lonely, and I feel like he just wanted connection. So he thought he wanted obsession, but what he actually wanted, in my opinion, was a connection, and that's not the same thing. See, a connection is when somebody chooses you. But that obsession was mainly because she couldn't stop choosing him. And not even by her own will. Very unhealthy. So look, Nikki's behavior is getting more and more extreme. And I hear the audience chuckling at certain moments, like when she's showing her extreme need for him to be next to her. That moment where he got up out the bed slowly and she said, "Stay!" And then he's like, okay. And then he came back to bed real quick. I heard them chuckling, and that's when I realized, like, a lot of people watching this movie, they're secretly relating to this on some level, you know? I know a lot of these chicks out there low-key crazy. Yeah. So Bear begins realizing that what he thought would solve all his problems is creating an entire new one. And honestly, that's one of the most realistic messages in this whole movie. A lot of people think that pain comes from not getting what they want. If I could just get that girl, you know, if I could just get the relationship, if only I could just get somebody to notice me. But the movie shows that, I feel like this movie shows these solutions. Okay. It just shows that sometimes getting what you want is not what you want. Simply put. His loneliness, Bear, yeah, it existed way before Nikki became obsessed. And it was clearly obvious he was wilding. Even in the opening scene when they're talking in the diner, he just looked like he didn't have a chance. And this movie to me is a wake-up call for mental health. Real talk. Yeah. So Nikki's obsession, it didn't heal whatever thing that he thought he had for her. It just made it worse. And the more she loses herself, the more horrified he becomes. The more she clings to him, the more trapped he feels. Yet he stays. This guy's psychotic. Yeah, he was the villain in this whole movie. He deserved everything he had coming to him. But the point of this video was to show that I'm sure a lot of people relate to this movie because of that, because he was perfectly flawed and perfectly relatable at the same time. And I just wanted to point that out because I really do believe that this movie is kind of like I said earlier, those Jordan Peele movies, they always have a real message behind them. That's why this movie shot for like under $1 million is blowing up. I don't know, did it hit 100 million yet? It's crazy. And you know what's ironic? Like, we live in a day where everybody should be so easy to connect with. You would think that like dating would be at its best right now. You would think 2026 is the year where everybody's finding the right person. There are billions of people in this world. You would think this movie right here wouldn't be so relevant, not with this era that we live in with dating apps, social media, DMs, algorithms, everything that is available to us to connect with people should make connecting with people easier, right? Yet loneliness keeps increasing. That's a fact. I'm not blowing smoke. You can look all of this up. You know, people are connected to everybody nowadays. People are connected to everybody that they know on, you know, whatever it is, TikTok, Instagram, you got dating apps. I don't know. I'm not on any of that stuff, but I know there are a million ways to connect with people, yet not everybody, but a lot of people are lonely. And the younger generation, you got to watch out for them because they're the ones that's going through it. And when men can't find women, even after putting in all these efforts, because, you know, and I'm not just blaming the women, it's on the men too, but that could lead to some real craziness out there in the world. Believe it or not. And I think that's why this movie really took off the way it took off. You know, it's crazy. Like how the movie Obsession captures that message. But I don't hear a lot of people talking about the real message behind it. So, you know, why not? For me, you know, I felt like why not get on here and point that out? Did you see Obsession? Why do you think this movie is blowing up and blew up the way that it did? Why do you think that? Do you think it's just because the movie itself was so good, nobody's seen anything like this before? Is it the shock value, or am I right? Do you think it's because low-key this is a very relatable situation that a lot of people are dealing with? Drop a comment, please like, share, subscribe, the whole nine, because what we have right here, what we're building, is a community of people who just love movies, love to talk about them, give their opinion, deep dives. I'm here for everything. I'll see you on the next one.